Hey, what's up guys? It's your girl Sugar Sade, back again with another video. Thanks for tuning in. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sade. I am a psychiatric nurse and I'm currently in school becoming a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. On my channel, I talk about all things related to nursing, lifestyle, and mental health. So if you're interested in any of those topics, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Guys, in today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys about this horrible assignment from hell. My second travel nurse assignment. It's been a lot. First of all, let me tell you, when I walked in on the first day, normally when you get a travel nurse assignment, you're supposed to get 2 days of training on every unit that you're going to work on. You normally get an orientation, and you normally get some sort of computer training, whether it's an online course or in person. You get some kind of computer training. I didn't get none of that here. None of it. I walked in on the first day thinking, okay, I'm walking into orientation. No, I'm walking into my first shift, just boom, out there. And they're like, okay, well, you can just shadow him, this other nurse today, and his name is blah, 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 right? So I'm waiting, blah, 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 still not here. It's 30 minutes into my shift. Everyone's like totally ignoring me. No one's acknowledging me. Everyone's going about their day. I'm sitting there looking dumb. I'm trying to get people's attention, and people are blatantly ignoring me, blatantly. So I find a nurse manager, and they came up to me and they're like, okay, yeah, you're going to be training with this guy. He's running late. He didn't know that he even worked today. He didn't know he was going to be training you today, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, cool. And she goes to me and she's like, hey, I'm just going to let you know this place is a mess. And you're probably not going to get good training. And the nurses here are probably not going to be nice to you or helpful to you. And I'm like, okay. We're off to a great start, here we go. So finally, my trainer gets there, and at this hospital, things are done very differently. It's not like a normal hospital. This place is ghetto. Like, I don't know what they're doing, but they're not doing things the normal way. When we came in there, nobody knows who their patients are. You don't know who your assignment is for the first hour or two. You're just roaming around without patients, which is pointless to me because normally the night shift makes the assignment for the day shift and the day shift makes the assignment for the night shift. But, however, here they do not. So I'm waiting. We're 2 hours into the shift. Finally, we get our patient assignment. I'm interested. I'm ready to take my notes on how to do an admission here, how to chart here, what things they require in their charting, how to do a discharge here, everything that I need to know, right? I'm ready. And the person who's training me, he's lost. Like, every question I'm asking him, he doesn't know, or he's second guessing himself, or he's going to show me later, but never ends up showing me later. And then on top of that, the shift was completely chaotic. We had 3 IMs and code grays in the first 3 hours of the shift. The admissions here are nonstop. They did 12 discharges and 12 admissions in the same shift. You're just literally, it's a factory, and not a well-oiled one. The way they do things there, the doctors are not doing their part. They're not writing prescriptions. When we went in for a report in the morning, it's just half the nurses don't even show up to report, and it's more like a huddle rather than a report. People are just basically rambling off random things about patients that we don't even know who are our patients or not, but they're just talking about patients. Half the nurses, like I said, are not there, so you don't even get report on the other half of the patient. So you just have to, once you get your assignment, just read up on them, read the notes, and see what's been going on with them and assess them yourself, because report is basically poop. Also, the nurses there are very, very, very rude, condescending, and very anti-traveler. Blatantly, they will say it. They do not like registry and they do not like travelers because they love their double time and their overtime and their double shifts and whatever other extra stuff they do to get extra money, and they believe that we are cutting down on that. Also, they believe that by the hospital hiring us, it's preventing them from getting a raise, which they ultimately want So they like all vow to not help travelers or registry. They try not to train us properly, and they are very rude to us because they want us to quit. And I've had a staff nurse tell me this specifically. So I'm not just insinuating or guessing. I've been told this after being treated so horribly, and finally just having to ask, yeah, what's the issue? Like, because I've never experienced this before. Condescending, rude. I remember on my first day, I'm only 3 weeks into this contract, and I've cried more times in these 3 weeks than I have in my whole entire nursing career. Embarrassing. Horrible. After my first day of not getting any training, I came back on the second day and I was like, okay, here we go. Here's a fresh start. This is day 2. I am going to get the little bit of training that I need to get, and then I'm going to be ready to go because I know I get 2 days. No, I didn't have 2 days of training. I came into work with a patient assignment list, and I was like, all right. So I never seen an admission or a discharge here. Never really seen somebody officially do all of the charting, but yeah, I have experience. I'm going to figure it out, right? And if I have questions, I'm going to ask the staff there, and hopefully they can clarify for me. So I did that, right? I came in, I had a discharge my first day on the floor alone. Never did a discharge at this hospital before. I had a discharge that was going to be at 9:30. So I'm like, okay, let me figure this out. I'm going to read this little cheat sheet manual that I found somewhere on how to do a discharge day and try to figure it out on my own, right? I had one question. I tapped a staff nurse that was sitting next to me, and I was like, hey, blah, 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 asked the question. And she looked at me and she said, look, I'm not trying to be mean, but you got one question to ask me, and that's all I'm answering. So I was like, oh, okay, so this is how it's going to be here. Noted, right? So I'm trying to figure it out on my own. Then on top of that, I'm struggling, going super slow because I don't know really what I'm doing. And they call me and they're like, hey, Sade, your transportation's here to pick up your patient. It was 8:30. I was told the discharge was going to be at 9:30. So I had to tell them, like, hey, I'm not ready. I was told this was going to be at 9:30. I'm trying to figure this out on my own. I never got training. I'm not ready. And everyone's just staring at me like, that's none of my business. And I'm freaking out, panicking. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a horrible environment to be in. I feel so unsafe. I feel like I can't ask anybody for help. I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't had proper training. My license is at risk here. And I was like contemplating quitting already. This is day 2. I'm like, man, I'm gonna quit. Thank God. I think one of the registry nurses seen the panic on my face, and she swooped me up really quickly. She's like, okay. She's like, don't worry about them. I've been through the same thing. They treat me this way. I'm going to help you out. And then she started helping me. She's like, this is what you do. This is what you do. This is what you do. This is where you go. And then she helped me get everything together. They arranged pickup to come 30 minutes later, to come back 30 minutes later. And we got it done. And I'm so grateful for her. I got to take my notes. I got to figure it out, what to do. And I survived that day. But yeah, the following days after that, nothing much really changed. I was trying to figure out things on my own. I would try to ask other different staff nurse questions, and I got the same response. I got lots of attitude. I got responses like, well, do you even have an experience? If you had experience, then you wouldn't be asking this question. Instead of just answering a simple question, they would be talking like that. And I would tell them, yes, I have experience, but things are done differently here. I don't need any help with assessment or any of the basic nursing skills, but I just want to know how you guys do your process here. That's it. Certain processes, not anything about my nursing, but how to do certain processes, like how to call pharmacy here. How, like these simple questions. How would I know these things? Like at this hospital, they have to fax the hold, 3 hold to different numbers. How am I supposed to know that if I never got told that? I've never worked at a hospital where I had to fax a hold to 3 different fax numbers, or whatever, just different little small details like that I needed to know for this specific facility. They were literally yelling, I'm telling you, screaming at me. If I would ask them a question, they'd be like, obviously, you didn't listen during training, and if you were listening, like literally, I'm telling you, talking to me like this. And it goes on and on and on. And anytime you ask a question, also they have that remark, "Oh, I don't get paid to train travelers." That's what they would say to you. Or, "Oh, um, you make enough money, so why are you asking me questions?" Stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is bad. This is bad. So one day I got called into a meeting, and it was a meeting full of all of the top nurses, like the manager, the DON, like all the top people, two managers and a DON. And they were all newly hired there within the last 6 months. The DON had been there 6 months. One of the nurse managers had been there 4 months, and the other one had been there 3 months. They were hired here to revamp this hellhole of a place and make it better, make it run how hospitals are running this day and age, and in a safe and effective manner, because this place is not. And they were telling me, basically complaining to me, saying, wow, we are so like burnt out here, like these nurses have been here for 20 plus years, way longer than us, and they anytime we try to implement a change or tell them any kind of direction, they all group up and gang up against us, and they say basically they're not doing it, and they don't do it, and nothing ever changes, and they're basically running the show, and they've gotten so much pushback this whole time. And they were asking me like, have you noticed any of the same things? And I expressed my concerns like, yeah, I've noticed this, and they have even refused to train me or refused to answer any of my questions, and I see that things are done very bizarrely here and in an unsafe manner, and many things we discussed. And it was interesting, was they were very fed up, and they apologized for my experience, and they said that if I ever needed questions I could ask them, but they understand how hard it is because they're going through the same thing. They told me that anything that I said in this meeting would be, in confidentiality, and it would not be exposed, right? On my last shift, one of the nurses was very visibly upset with me because the nurse managers pulled her aside and said a direct quote that she said to me that I told them, and she of course knew it was me because it was a direct quote, therefore causing more drama for me. And then on top of that, that DON ended up quitting that day because, I don't know, I guess she had it with the place, but she ended up quitting. She threw me under the bus, and then she quit. Even one day I came into work, and there's this nurse, and she is wearing mismatched scrubs, she's wearing red smeared lipstick, she's wearing blue smeared mascara, she has messy undone hair, her literal butt crack was out all day because her scrubs were too small. She just looked a horrible mess, and to put the icing on the cake, she reached over me and said, "Oh, sorry girl if I smell, I haven't showered." I was just like, okay, all right, that's fine. But this lady had the nerve to be extremely rude and condescending to me all day. As soon as she came into the unit, she was like, "Ugh, I'm here with all the travelers in registry. No offense." She yelled in one of the other registry's face. She called her effing annoying because she's a traveler in a registry. She complained to me saying that she doesn't have time to train me, so don't even ask, don't even bother to even try to ask. Just on and on and on. That day in the unit, I had a patient that was up for discharge. Right? So I was like, okay, this patient is going to be discharging today. Let me go ahead and interview the patient, see if they're ready for discharge, see how they're presenting, if they're having any suicidal thoughts, if they're having any homicidal thoughts. Let me try to gather any information of a pharmacy that we can send their medications to, all that stuff that I'm supposed to do before discharging a patient, right? And then I see the doctor, I give him a quick report on the patient. I say, hey, yeah, this patient, he said he's ready to go. He's not suicidal, but he is very, very internally preoccupied. He can't even answer a lot of my questions. He couldn't tell me where his pharmacy was, and I can't get a hold of any family of his. So basically, I asked the doctor, what do you want to do? Do you still want to discharge him? And then the doctor said, oh, no, he still has a couple days left on his hold. We'll keep him a couple more days and see if we can get a hold of family, or see if he can clear up a little bit more. So I said, okay, cool. The doctor left, and then the nurse that looks a mess came up to me and said, oh, we're discharging that patient. And I said, oh, well, the doctor said no. And she was like, well, we need to. He's been here almost 2 weeks. And I was like, well, he still has like 4 more days on his hold, the doctor said. And but I was like, all right, I'm going to go ask the charge nurse to see what I should do. So I asked the charge nurse, and the charge nurse said, she's an RN just like you. Who do you take orders from, another RN or the doctor? And I was like, okay, true. I take orders from the doctor, so I'm going to listen to what the doctor said and not discharge a patient because, first of all, I don't know this doctor well enough to know that he's not going to be upset if I discharge a patient after he told me no already. What if he has a plan for him? What if, you never know. I'm going to listen to what the doctor says to protect my license because if something goes wrong with that patient after he discharges, it's going to fall back on who? Me. So I went back and I told the other nurse that. And she didn't say anything. We had a good day. We went about our business. And then when the night shift came in for a report, she started off like, okay, so you guys know I was with this travelers and registry all day. And she let one of the patients manipulate her into not going home. And I tried to tell her, blah, 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 blah. And she goes on. And I'm like, excuse me, ma'am. I didn't let anybody manipulate me. The patient told me he was ready to go. Actually, it was the doctor that decided to keep him here, and I'm not going to go against the doctor's order, especially if the patient still has days left on his hold. And then we kind of got into a verbal confrontation. She was yelling at me. I was arguing back with her. I ended up breaking down and crying out of frustration because I was just too done with this place. I thought things were run so horribly, and I didn't like the bullying that was going on. I didn't feel safe, and I felt like my license was at risk. And I was honestly contemplating quitting. So that's why I was crying out of frustration. I left into the hall. I didn't cry in front of everybody, but after that little altercation, I left out and I cried in the hall. I was so embarrassed. But one of the other nurses came in and comforted me and said, hey, don't worry about it. They do that to all the travelers in registry here. They don't want you guys here. And they want to see you quit. And this is what they're trying to get out of you. She was like, don't mind her. You just come in here and get your money and do your job and protect your license and go home. Don't worry about anybody else. And that kind of cheered me up a little bit. And I was like, okay, got myself together and made it through the end of that shift. But yeah, guys, things are not looking too good here. I'm struggling a lot. Every week it's something new. The bullying has not lightened up. Sometimes I'm first admission 3 days in a row. Sometimes I have multiple, 3 admissions, 3 discharges in one shift. Some days I don't even get to take my 15-minute breaks. Most days I don't get to take any of my 15-minute breaks, and I'm barely taking my 30-minute lunch at 6 o'clock at the end of the shift. I lost 3 pounds in my first week working there because I just didn't have time to eat. And by the time I did eat, it was so late. So I was basically eating 1 meal a day. Honestly, I don't think I will be extending here. It's not, for me, this place is not worth the money thus far. And it's not worth the mental strain that it puts on me. I do not like the work environment. It's not a good teamwork environment. It's not good at all. Doctors are rude there. Doctors don't even fill in their own prescriptions. We put in all the prescriptions. Patients call after their discharge every time saying, hey, I can't pick up my prescriptions because the doctor didn't accept it on their end for the e-script. And then I'm having to call the pharmacy and put in phone orders for prescriptions and verify orders that I put in the first place, which isn't safe. The doctor needs to be verifying the orders at least. If he's not putting them in, he needs to be verifying them because that's, again, my nursing license on the line. I'm putting in the medication orders and I'm verifying them and I'm not a doctor. How does that make sense? But other than that, everything hasn't been terribly horrible here. I do like their charting system. It's Cerner. It's not too much. It's pretty simple. And I like their admission process here now that I know it. And their discharge process as well. So I like how they do those things. It's just the environment that's really just killing me. And every week is like a fight to get through it. So I'm 3 weeks in, 10 more weeks to go. Wish me luck, guys. I hope none of you guys ever have to deal with this kind of work environment. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. And this job has made me have such tough skin. It has tested me in ways that have never been tested. It has challenged me, it has scared me, and it has pushed me to my absolute limits. Some advice I would say is do not go to hospitals that are very small and that don't utilize travelers, because if they're not used to having travelers, they usually don't want them, and the staff has a lot of pushback towards them. Some of the bigger hospitals, they're used to having travelers. They have good training system. They have more of a name to protect, so they do things a little bit more accordingly. And the smaller private hospitals, it's a hit or miss with them. You never know what you're walking into, and you don't have the power. So, I hope this was informative. I hope you guys learned something from this video. I hope this gave you guys some insight onto the experience that I've been going through. And that's what I have for you guys. Wish me luck. See you in my next one. Bye.